Hi book friends, I'm Erin, and this is Erin Go Read. It is November 1st, about 5:24 a.m. This is typically when I do my nonfiction reading, and so let's get into it. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to film my November TBR today, but I'm just going to show you quickly my choices, my pile of possibilities, because it's not that big as far as nonfiction goes without adding any fiction to it. So I'm already in the middle of Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Code by Emily and Amelia Nagoski. That's exactly what it is. So this book will fit for the secret prompt quite well. Then another book, I'm in the middle of it because this was supposed to be for an in real life nonfiction book club that I've joined, only I ended up having like a medical thing happen and the night of when we were supposed to be meeting, so I didn't finish the book because I knew I was going to be showing up, and then I thought, oh, maybe I'll save it for nonfiction November. So here we are. This could really go for record or for secret, but this is Gang Leader for a Day by Sudhir Venkatesh, and Sudhir is during the course of the book, he's a sociology grad student, and he kind of gets himself, basically he feels like, how are we really going to find out about the inner workings of gangs and what makes them tick and their impact on the greater community by having them answer a bunch of surveys? Like, that sounds really stupid to him, and so he goes and kind of enmeshes himself, ingratiates himself with one of the leaders of the what gang is it? Okay, some gang in Chicago, and so we're getting this inside look from, at least inside look as far as the view that he's allowed to see. So far, that's my one, I don't know about criticism, but just my one real recognition of what's going on in the book is that kind of like having an unreliable narrator, we're only told what they tell us, right? What they deem worthy to tell us. We're only getting the perspective that he's allowed to see. So it kind of makes me think about like a like a government tour of North Korea, where they show you exactly what they want you to see, and you don't get any other perspective, even though you know there's a lot behind the scenes that that could be seen. So it's just kind of a curated view maybe that we're getting, and maybe, I'm about halfway through, so maybe that changes, and his eyes have already kind of been opened at one point, where he sees an act of violence that kind of he wasn't supposed to see because the guy that he knows didn't realize he was there. And then we have Wild by Cheryl Strayed. The movie was made about this. Hilarious kind of nod to this in the new, like, Gilmore Girls as well, Booker movie. If you know. But basically I think she's recently divorced. She's feeling really lost in herself, and she goes and decides to hike a portion of the Pacific Crest Trail. And that's her story of herself in the elements. That's my word there. And then I have H is for Hawk, we have a physical border here, but then also we're crossing borders between like the animal world and the human world. And I believe this is Helen McDonald actually like training her training a hawk is the idea. And I'm reading this with Sandy at Miss Reads a Lot and folks over on her Discord channel as part of her 1001 book club. And then finally, maybe the book I'm most just kind of like fascinated by actually is Cult Following, My Escape and Return to the Children of God by Bexy Cameron. And this is her story about it. So this could go for border, this could go for record. It's a record of her experience, also maybe the secrets of this cult. So yeah, pick your word there. So I am going to start. I'm going to start with a cup of coffee that's making. I don't know if you can hear that in the background, but I'm going to start with Burnout this morning. And I'm really reading this because I've been experiencing just an incredible amount of stress really for the last 15 years. caregiving for my now late husband, and just all of the ups and downs and medical crises we've had. And then since he passed away, you know, the grief, but also the financial burden, you know, starting a business, deciding that I don't want to be in business and working for somebody else, all of this. And not to mention all of the training, the physical training that I've done as kind of my outlet. During that time, it just has really, really added up. And I've been having physical symptoms of that stress in my body, which resulted in that medical procedure I had that I talked about earlier. Everything's fine, by the way. It's like you can say it's just stress, and in a way, it's helpful because, okay, there's not something seriously wrong with your body that needs to be addressed, but also that also means it's literally all in your head, which is not quite as easy to deal with than just like taking a pill or having a procedure. So because it's all in my head, I need the secret to the stress cycle. So anyhow, I'm gonna get my coffee and get to reading. It is, what time is it? It's Tuesday, 7:41. I feel like first of all, I have very overly ambitious November reading plans in general. You can see my November TBR to prove that. But even just for this evening, I have overly ambitious plans. I'm typically like heavy eyelids trying to not fall asleep at 8:30, and it is 7:41, and I have 3 books in my hand. So let's see what's gonna happen. So I'm watching like a replay actually of a reading sprint from, who is it? Bookmark Chronicles, Ray at Bookmark Chronicles. 44 minutes are on the clock. I hope to read parts of these 3 books. So I am a good way into The Woman in White. So I'm going to continue on with this. This was my main, really my only Victober read. And I just let myself be okay with going slow with it, taking it slow, and being okay with the fact that it's taking me so long to read it, because I'm very much been enjoying the book. But I've gotten distracted by other things. Like I read The Library of the Dead, and just like because it was something I could finish quickly, I haven't picked this up in several days. So I would like to get a good, maybe 10 pages or so in Woman in White. Would also like to start My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a horror, but since I'll just be starting it, hopefully nothing too scary is going to happen right away, that it'll be okay that I read it kind of right before bed. And then also I would love to start Cult Following by Betsy Cameron. Just because I think this is the book that I'm the most just like fascinated by. Just cults are fascinating. It's some weird stuff. And it's like that train wreck that you can't, you can't not watch it. And so, yeah, that's kind of the plan for right now. So I've got the World Series is kind of on in the background. The cheating Astros are down 7-0 at the moment. But I'm not really watching it. It's just kind of on. I'm already down to 42 minutes in this reading sprint. So, I mean, it's a replay. I could pause it or whatever, but I'm going to use that as my kind of incentive. So yeah, I'm going to start with The Woman in White, and then we'll see how far I get into the others. Also, tomorrow I should have a good amount of time to read. I'll probably take my computer and do some editing and get the November TBR up as well. My mom has a medical procedure tomorrow. She's getting some injections in her neck, like lidocaine injections in her neck, and I should be there for like 3 hours, just kind of like waiting for her. So hopefully I'll get a good amount of reading done there too. All right, stop screwing around and start reading. Whoa, I just read about 14 pages in this, and some stuff just went down. The twist has happened, and now I wait upon the explanation of the twist, find out what really happened. Like, I had to go back and read, like, did I just read what actually just happened? Am I understanding correctly? Wow. Yes, I'm loving this book. As long as it's taking me to read it, I am loving this book. I'm going to start this, and I just realized I don't even know what it's about. I have no idea what it's about. So let's read the synopsis. First of all, I don't think I've read like a proper horror since like R.L. Stine Fear Street books when I was, like 12, 13, something like that. So anyhow, You won't find a more hardcore 80s horror fan than high school senior Jade Daniels, and you won't find a place less supportive of girls who wear torn t-shirts and too much eyeliner than Proof Rock, nestled 8,000 feet atop the mountain in Idaho, right alongside Indian Lake, home to both Camp Blood, site of a massacre 50 years ago, and as of this summer, Terra Nova, a second home celebrity Camelot being carved out of the national forest. That's not the only thing that's getting carved up, though. This, Jade knows, is the start of a slasher, but what kind? Who's wearing the mask? Jade's got an encyclopedic recall of every horror movie on the shelf, but what will help her survive? Can she get a final girl trained enough to stop all this from happening? Does she even want to? Isn't a slasher exactly what her hometown deserves? This novel explores the changing landscape of the West through Stephen Graham Jones's distinct voice of sharp humor and prophetic violence. All right. NPR's favorite scary read of 2021. Hopefully the beginning of it won't be too scary because I'm reading this right before I go to bed. So I just finished my first nonfiction read for Nonfiction November, A Gang Leader for a Day. As I think I had mentioned before, I was about halfway through this when we started Nonfiction November, and I jumped right back into it. It's really, really readable. So this is Sudhir, the rogue sociologist's deep dive into basically living amongst the Black Kings. I mean, he didn't live with them, but he spent much of his days with them. He was with them for 6 years and really got an inside look at the kind of the not so much the gang life that he was interested in, but really in the community around the gang, and particularly the projects where JT, the guy that he was with, lived, how the community operated, how the gang operated within the community, and then also kind of in the latter half we really get into the police presence and the corruption within the police, how the like police and like ambulances wouldn't even go to the projects. Just really interesting, just a fascinating, just an absolutely fascinating read. And I know he has another book, Floating City, about New York's divergent economic worlds of and he has another book, Floating City, that takes place in New York. And so toward the end of this book, he's like starting to move on, goes to Harvard and then Columbia University. So yeah, that was super good. So I'm doing reading sprints with Krista. So glad I was able to finish Gang Leader for a Day. It was great timing because during the times that she was like talking, interacting with people, I finished folding and putting in laundry. Then another time I cleaned the bathroom, and then another time I cooked and I didn't actually cook. I made a protein shake and drank that, and then actually got to read during the sprints. So now I'm not sure. I could start another nonfiction, but I think I will get into back and forth between The Woman in White and My Heart is a Chainsaw. I feel like I'm going to start with The Woman in White because I am more close to finishing that, and I haven't read it at all today. Editing Aaron here. I got about 125 into My Heart is a Chainsaw and I DNF'd it. I just it wasn't drawing me in. I wasn't that interested in the story. Basically, our main character, she's this big horror film buff, and she lives in this small like lake town where across the lake there was this, I can't remember what they called it, like camp murder or something like that. Like there was this old camp that like a murder had taken place. I'm crooked. Here we go. A murder had taken place there, or several murders had taken place there. And then many years later, now it's turned into like a McMansion community. And so now some of those kids, as they're moving in, are going to the high school. And so this girl moves in, starts going to the high school, and our main character identifies her as a final girl. And so she has kind of all the same characteristics as any final girl in a horror movie and a slasher has. And essentially, due to her existence as a final girl, if she is a final girl, therefore we must be in a slasher.
So people are going to start dropping dead. So that's basically what the premise is. And I didn't care. Yeah. So like, if you loved it, awesome. I'd love to know if you were really into this book, if you read it, if you finished it, and you liked it, let me know. But it just, yeah, it didn't do anything to me. So I'll be probably sending this to a little free library, or the next time I go to my, my used bookstore, I'll trade that in. Better take out my bookmark before I forget. That's when you know you've like officially DNF'd the book, is when you take out your bookmark.